You know, we have this bad feeling in the background. Well, I do more than him, but we're still feeling bold, you know, like on this mild adrenaline from, you know, daring to trespass, you know, from feeling adventurous, all of that stuff. Hello and welcome, my fellow artists, creatives, adventurers. Today I thought it would be fun to do a storytelling video. So we are practicing sketching some fine male figures that might or might not include some rope, and talking about risky adventures. Two things I love dearly, but that are better had in moderation. So it was a very beautiful summer a couple years ago when me and my close friend at the time went on a little road trip into the countryside. You know, just to get out of town, drive around, maybe find an abandoned place to explore. Us together really kind of brought out a very adventurous vibe, since both of us, you know, liked exploring and had passion, well, still have passion for various experiences and adventures. He had a car, which also made it easier, you know, for me to adventure with him because of my chronic pain and not being able to tense and move a lot. So most of the time I'm quite chill, but sometimes when the thirst of adventure kicks in, I can do some spontaneous things, and this was one of these days where I was definitely feeling that thirst for adventure. So on this summer day, with very clear skies, it was so blue, like there wasn't like a single cloud from what I remember. And it was, you know, the countryside was green and yellow, the fields. It was beautiful. And so we set out on this little road trip, visiting some castle ruins and some forests and the countryside, you know, stuff like that. And on our way back through this vast country, we noticed this property in the middle of the fields. It was placed further from the road and other buildings, in between these, you know, golden wheat fields. And it was like raised a little on like a little hill, so you could see all around, you know, from within it. I'm getting tense just in anticipation, reliving this again. So from afar, this property, it looked abandoned, and we failed to find any interesting places to explore, you know, that day. So we still wanted to satisfy this adventure thirst, this need for adventure that both of us had. And this property, you know, kind of surrounded by these fields, it looked very tempting and very mysterious. This single dark compound against like this blue sky. So I tell him that it looks kind of explorable, and on a whim, just before passing this turn, my friend just turns the car, hitting this gravel road leading up to the property. And it was a very split-second decision, which I might or might not regret later. We drive up this hill into the entryway, this kind of like a little yard entryway. And the closer we get, the less abandoned it kind of starts looking. So there are two gateways in this entry yard, and these gateways are perpendicular to each other, separated by a building. And inside, from what we can see from the car, we can see some broken down silos, like a car junkyard. It looked basically very unkept, but it didn't look fully abandoned. And there was a sign on one of the buildings saying, "Do not enter, it's private property." You know, the usual, like next to one of the gates. So we could see it very clearly. After a short debate about whether we should proceed, my friend climbs out, checks the grated gate. It's locked. Then he climbs onto these like big concrete beams that were like piled onto each other in the driveway to like get a better look. He climbs back in, says he doesn't see anyone. But I do feel like a little sus vibe, you know, but nevertheless, the adventurous spirit prevails, and he parks his car behind these big beams, you know, to try and conceal it a bit better, because you couldn't see like behind them. And I remember being torn and very, but in that moment I really wanted to do something wild, so I just climbed out. We approached one of these gates, the one that was a bit deeper in the driveway and hidden better, and we climbed it, doing some serious trespassing. Oh my god, I am crazy. So these gates led us straight into an old abandoned junkyard, and I'm talking like 70s, 60s, cars, trucks, like these old rusty Soviet, bulldozers, and all sorts of other junk. And it was fascinating to inspect them all. We followed this path forward as it, looped through the entire property, and we were noting multiple times as to how suspicious this property looks. It's neither abandoned nor kept well. And it got even more suspicious when we followed the road to the right that led in between these white windowless, what seemed like farm barracks. The first one seemed abandoned, but still curious and kind of thrilled by our adventure, we turned right on the road, seeing a couple more of these eerie barracks or whatever, and then we smelled some animal shit. And one of the barracks, we heard it was humming as if something was operational inside, but we did not hear any animal or human noises. At that point, I know that we should probably not stay long, which was a very good idea, and that we should just finish, this round and just go. I don't remember what my friend was saying, but he was not getting suspicious as fast as I was, and I'm so happy I actually followed my intuition on this one, because oh my god, it could have went so much worse than it did. But continuing, the point was that none of it actually looked proper to me or felt good to me. So we make this loop back to the junkyard, and here's the picture of the layout so you can understand better. He proposes to climb one of the silos, with the crumpled roof. I refuse because I don't want to overstrain because of my chronic pain, but also because I'm just heeding my bad feelings about this. So reaching back to the gate that we climb, we still kind of excitedly decide to climb on some old trucks and take some pictures before we go. And, we have this bad feeling in the background. Well, I do more than him, but we're still feeling bold, like on this mild adrenaline from, daring to trespass, from feeling adventurous, all that stuff. So I pose on this truck, and this is an actual photo of me. And as I'm pointing this finger, feeling like Indiana Jones, in one ear I hear this faint grating rumble coming from the gravel road. And I can't see it, we can't see the road because it's like hidden by bushery, and we went through the gate that was more hidden from the road, so we cannot see it. And I go like, hey, do you hear anything? And he says, nah. I try to continue posing, but now I hear it louder. And I go again, I definitely hear something. And now he checks, peeking out from behind the truck and, past this gate that we climbed. Because we couldn't see, from that spot. It was very surrounded by bushery and it was like further into the driveway. And I just remember my heart sink as he looks at me and he goes like, oh shit, it's a van. There's a van coming up this fucking road. Like my entire body just froze in like a second of like, for real? No way. And then the next second we're rushing to hide behind the back of the truck into the dense shrubbery, and this tall grass. And that was a long time in a while in my life when I actually experienced a pure adrenaline rush that actually comes from being in an actual dangerous situation, potentially dangerous situation. So we freeze, both with our knees bent, but neither, standing nor crouching, kind of ready to run. And we listen. And as terrified as I was, I can say that I have never experienced a sharper mind than I have experienced in that moment. It was all sinking in so fast. The ambiguity of the place and my worst fear that we might have stumbled, into something illegal, some illegal operation, in which case police would probably, have been a good ending. The worst ending is that, we could end up on someone else's butchering table. And it was not very likely. But after seeing this property in the middle of nowhere, seeing how suspicious it all looked, I was really not taking any chances and just, assuming the worst, really. And we were hiding next to this gate, which I'm gonna name Gate A. And here's the layout again, so you understand what happens next better. So my heart is pounding, and I feel basically alive with adrenaline. Everything is simple, and a part of me feels like it's the only state I have known for my entire life. That I was made for, but amplified to the point of being the only way of being. To give you a bit of context, I have psychosomatic chronic pain, and it all comes from, all the trauma that I have. So it's not like adrenaline rushes are not really familiar to me, but this was just so amplified, as I said. And these real situations do have a very kind of fun way of making you feel truly present and truly alive. It's kind of like meditation, but approaching through the back door, as weird as it sounds. So my friend looks at me with wide eyes and into the fence behind us that is surrounded by this, again, very dense layer of shrubs and small trees, and he suggests that we climb it. And I say it's not a good idea and that we should wait. It wouldn't have been a practical decision. We would make a lot of noise, and then we'd have to run through an open field, leaving our car in a vulnerable spot that we have to go back to. And I didn't realize it was my reasoning at the time, but upon writing the story out, I realized that this is what I was thinking. So, standing there, frozen, we listen. I hear a door open, and steps crunch against gravel as the person walks closer to the gate. He probably sees our car. Not probably. Most likely, definitely sees our car. And a part of me hopes that he just, see it and assume that we're not inside, the property. For whatever reason, he would assume that, given that we're not there, and he would just leave. He doesn't call out, or make any form of noise. We listen. More footsteps. The car door closes. Tires against gravel again. And we exhale as we think he's going to leave. It was a moment of relief. But then I hear the distant clanking of this chain on another gate, and my heart just drops into my stomach again. Well, not that it could drop any further than it already was. So whoever that was opening this other gate, Gate B. So we're whispering in between each other about what we should do, and we hear this van drive into the property from the other side, meaning they will have to drive around in a loop before they reach our location. So I take the lead and I say that we should just run the moment the van is behind the farmhouses and the furthest away from us. And my friend just nods. So we stare from our shrub cover into the small opening part of the compound, because we couldn't see much because we were in between these two trucks. But behind some junk piles, we both saw the van drive past on the other side of the looping road. This is where actually a very interesting reality glitch happened, because both of us were on adrenaline and both of us saw the back of the van before it disappeared into, the depths of the compound. But the interesting part is that he saw black and I saw white. And to this day, we still are convinced that that is what we saw. So that was a little glitch in the Matrix, which I still cannot explain. But hey, I do believe in the multiverse and random glitches in the Matrix. Also being spiritual and having explored the universe in many different realities, doesn't entirely surprise me that, in that moment we saw different things. So we stay for 3 seconds and then we creep up to the front a little bit. And I tell him to peek outside to see if he sees the van. I remember being so actually conflicted because a part of me wanted to be together with my friend and be a good comrade, but the other part of me only cared about myself. And I just wanted to book it and throw him under the bus, as long as it wasn't me who was noticed first. And I really cared about my own life. If it weren't for his car that I needed, I might have actually, booked it. I don't know. And it feels like it's not a right thing to do, But you don't actually know how you're gonna react and what survival instincts are gonna kick in until you are actually in a dangerous situation, or a highly potentially dangerous situation. And so when the van is behind the animal barracks, we just launch out of our hiding spot. We climb the gate A, we rush to the car, and I wasn't even looking behind me. The car was all that mattered, and like a first fucking diamond in a cave, and we didn't have any armor. So he starts the car, floors it, and we just, zoom down this gravel road, dust in our wake. Mind you, the main road was not populated either. Most of what was around us was fields and forests. And I kept looking behind me to see if they were following us, but they did not. And then the whole wave of shock and disbelief comes, and relief. And I'm feeling frozen, like, oh my god, did that just really happen? Did we really just almost got caught by possibly some shady farmers in a suspicious looking property, in the fucking countryside? Like, oh my god. And so I instantly go into my processing mode, which is like a relaxed state of being that I kind of practice for my chronic pain. And if I don't do that, then I have even more pain. But it is also very good for any other adrenaline-inducing situations, really. So I just start breathing and, letting my body and mind kind of have their natural reactions of releasing stress. And I start shaking in the car, as I usually do. And, me and my friend, we start discussing, what the fuck just happened. And just trying to rationalize it all and, compartmentalize everything. Is that how you say that word? Assuming that is how you say that word. We were trying to do that. So there's a lot of good and bad things that I took away from this experience. Well, I guess mostly good, actually, surprisingly. Bad is that it was very stressful. Very stressful. And I know that I'm supposed to be scared of what could have happened, and a lot could have happened, and it was scary in the moment. But that clarity and that simplicity of an adrenaline rush was also so intoxicating. And, the fear faded away to this kind of almost like killer be killed mentality, the clarity of mind, all that mattered was the goal and how to get there, no distractions. And I guess that's an adrenaline junkie part of me. Not that I engage in it often, but when it happens, I'm not complaining. And there's nothing really more pure than an actual dangerous situation. It is, of course, still best to seek out controlled, dangerous situations, because you don't want to traumatize yourself, as I did, at least a little bit. And I feel like this experience was really so eye-opening in terms of what it's actually like to take adventurous risks and what might happen, and actually not only watch it or hear someone else talk about it, but experience it myself, and seeing that a lot of things could have actually went very wrong. And it was also quite a test to actually see how I can still think and make decisions in a situation like this, because you never know until you're in it. You never know, and you might think you know, but you don't until you actually have experienced it. Afterwards, I had like a mild paranoia that we might have been tracked or a license number might have been seen, but it all seemed okay. It kind of just faded, and my boyfriend at the time kind of calmed me down and said that it was unlikely, and he was the most reasonable and grounded one most of the time. So I trusted him, and he was right. The property did not have any cameras, which makes it kind of better, and I guess maybe worse at the same time. And basically it seemed like they just let us go and didn't care. And it all turned out okay. And I was just left with this very intense realization as to what it's like to actually be searched for by unknown people versus, when I just feel social anxiety. Because oftentimes social anxiety convinces you that you are the center of attention and that people are out to get you or, make your life worse. But oh my god, is it actually so fucking different when it's an actual situation where people are looking for you and you are actually committing a little offense. So here's my story. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned from my experience and take that into account before adventuring yourself. And I hope you also enjoyed this art of today. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.